some of the records where you appear have sold millions of copies. Can you contrast the reception from those records and the ones made for smaller labels? For example, Arcade 5 versus Anthony Braxton. How are the audiences and how are they different for this type of music you make?
I've played on a great many albums over the years, 100 plus, and some of those records have been quite successful. And so something like Arcade Fire, Suburbs, or Reflector, they're multi platinum or something to that effect. It's not that there's no difference between an audience for bands like that and for something like a show for with Anthony Braxton or more or one of my solo shows for that matter. All the same things apply. There has to be. It has to be musically engaging. The fact of live music, it isn't listening to a record. People are there not only in the same space as the sound itself, but they're also in the same space as your body. There needs to be something about the body language, not only between the members of the group, but between all of that and the audience. Venue has an enormous amount to do with it. It is if you're with a huge rock band, there are certain venues that are more conducive to a really amazing experience for both the band and the audience. And same thing goes as I think any musician knows this. That venue is very important, and so sometimes you play, you improvise at a spot, and it's something, and things just never quite come together, and another spot just feels completely effortless. And I think not just acoustics, but the overall aesthetic of a place can really help or hinder that whole experience and relationship between the performer and the audience. But there are scales of volume. I like to play, they're all very, very different. So an intimate acoustic show, I did an intimate acoustic duo show with Evan Parker a few years back, and, just a small room and no amplification. Beautiful. One of the best experiences. But then, I've played my solo music opening up for Arcade Fire, for instance, and I did a few dates with them, and one of them was at a soccer stadium in Mexico City. So there's 18,000 people there, and I've got that PA amplifying my sax, and there's a kind of there's an intoxication to that much volume, to moving that much air, which I find is a thing all in itself. So yeah.
While you work with many different musicians, some of the very well-known ones are very idiosyncratic. How do you decide who would be interesting to work with?
I've gotten to play with a lot of people over the years, and many of them, some of my favorite musicians of all time. And I can't say that it's been my decision, although with who to work with, it's not like you live your life and everyone is just offering you, who would you like to work with this year? and so there are moments where you just have to seize certain opportunities, and also if you want something, you have to put yourself in positions where you may be more apt to get to receive certain opportunities. And so when I was very young and fresh out of music school, I had a dream. I wanted to work with Tom Waits. I knew that he lived in the Bay Area. I knew that he worked with people usually in the Bay Area, and so I moved to the Bay Area at that time, and figured I would just play as much as I could with as many people as I could, and eventually maybe I would get to meet him and to play with him on something in some capacity, and that ended up happening. I played with enough people, and a year and a half or 2 years into me living in that town, I got a call from him, and I started to record with him, and so was able to have that dream come true moment. But it only comes, those things only come if you're out, and so I think it's just it's a combination of intention and statistics. You have to know what you want to go after, and then at the same time you just have to be there over and over and over again, hoping that that your actions manifest those meetings. Yeah.
You play many different instruments. How do you choose which instruments you will play on a particular session?
So yeah, I'm a saxophone player by training, and I grew up playing alto sax, and then picked up tenor when I was about 13, and bari when I was in high school, and soprano the same, and flute I picked up when I was about 15. Clarinet I started playing when I was 18, bass clarinet shortly thereafter. I started I started learning how to play piano a bit throughout my 20s, and I picked up brass and French horn specifically before I started working with Arcade Fire in my early 30s. And so the only instrument I'm a saxophone. I call myself a saxophonist, but I guess I am a multi-instrumentalist. And so when I'm doing session work, there's it may be for a score, it may be for someone's singer-songwriter or someone's rock band or an electronic musician or whatever it is. I've always approached any collaboration, any time that I'm coming on as a side musician to do arrangements and to perform on a piece of music that's already written. You really just have to do the least amount that is necessary to finish the song. So just listening to what is there, identifying what maybe isn't there yet that could help it function, either rhythmically, harmonically, melodically, texturally, and then once you identify that, then what sound, what technique on what instrument, what's going to be the best device for supplying that, and so it's pretty much just kind of like deduction.
Okay. What are some of the specific difficulties or challenges involved in playing the bass or the contrabass saxophone as opposed to the higher pitch instruments? And I understand that today you played a contrabass built in modern times, named two-backs. Can you describe a little bit the history of what is the two-backs? And I understand it's the same range as of the contrabass saxophone, but it's built more compact.
Yeah. So, this brilliant instrument maker, Benedict Eppelsheim, forget when exactly he invented it, but he's designed quite a few new builds for existing instruments, and one of the ones that he created was called the two-backs. It's a contrabass saxophone in the key of E flat, an octave below the baritone. And so instead of utilizing a similar flare and length of tubing to get the pitch as a traditionally designed contrabass saxophone, he instead elongated the tube and reduced the intensity of the conical flare, and so the whole tubing is much longer. The flare on the end and the mouthpiece, the hole where the mouthpiece are narrower than on the traditional. So it ends up being an ergonomically pretty much flawless instrument. Intonation wise, it is practically perfect. Ergonomically, it fits in human hands in ways that the earlier builds of instruments never really did. Because the tone holes, because you're dealing with a narrower tube, the tone holes don't have to be so large. And so when the tone holes don't have to be so large, you're not disrupting the air to the degree that you would be with a very, very wide tone hole. Every time that very, very big tone hole opens up, that's that much more air that's popping out the side rather than going further down the tube. So it means that you can play it with an amazing amount of agility, quickness, and still retain all of the low-end fundamentals. So it has a completely different resonance and acoustic signature, frequency-wise, than anything else that I play. The tubax is a very free-blowing and very easy blowing instrument. I mean, it takes a lot of air, but it is not. It is nothing like the difficulties that of playing something like my bass saxophone, which is a Con from 1908. And so that is ergonomically not built for human beings, and it is the keys on that are quite large. There's a lot of resistance, and just in general, it's a fighter. So I have to, in order to this, I think I could walk away from the tubax for a number of weeks and come back to it and feel more or less at home. If I walk away from the bass sax for a number of weeks and try to play it, it is entirely punishing, and it won't feel good for at least a few days, if not another week, of getting all of my parts reacquainted with it again.
What's your relationship to classical music?
I was trained classically. That's how I got my start. Although I've always been playing other music, I suppose. When I was young, I was 12, 13, 14, I was playing a bit of rock music on the side with friends, and I was starting to get into noise music and improvisation, but I was classically trained, and so I started playing classical music and competing and doing things like that when I was 15, and then eventually I auditioned for a scholarship to study with Donald Cinta, who was the professor of saxophone over at the University of Michigan. So I did that when I was 17, and was able to get accepted then to the music school there, and so I got my bachelor's primarily studying classical music, although I did study a bit of jazz and free improvisation as well. But my whole scholastic, like tutelage, academic musical background is in classical music.
H.P. Lovecraft wrote the original story for Color Out of Space. Is that one reason you were drawn to composing film for that film?
Color Out of Space was a friend and a collaborator and somebody who I greatly admired, a film composer and musician named Johan Johansson, had worked with a film company called Spectravision to make a film called Mandy prior to Color Out of Space. And so it was their plan to have Johan score Color Out of Space as his next movie. And very tragically, Johan died before that could go on. And so when I found out about that movie being something that was in the works, this was I think maybe a year after he had passed. I didn't know about his involvement in it, but I just had heard that Spectravision was going to be making this film based on a Lovecraft story. And for me, like I loved what they had done with Mandy. My whole approach to film and to making music for films is basically like, have I seen this thing? Have I seen this movie before? Is this something that is just it's just stock? It's something that you've seen over and over again. If not, then how can I make something that I haven't heard before to accompany it, to bring it fully to life? And so I'm always trying to find pieces, films, scripts that I find as like completely novel and something that is very unique in the industry, and so that I can. So I find that to be a challenge. I find it to be really thrilling, and ultimately I like being able to kind of invent new methods and new sounds going forward with film composition. So for that one, it was just like a confluence of too many things. The subject matter, the fact of it being Lovecraft, the visuals of it, the fact that Spectravision I knew was a great company and I wanted to work with them. So I think I actually wrote. I pitched. I pitched an idea and it worked.
What was it like working with Ari Aster on Hereditary?
So I think I worked with Ari Aster on the movie Hereditary. It was 2017 that film came out, I believe. And so we met. He called me about 2015, maybe it was even earlier than that, and had and sent me the script and said that he was working on this, trying to get that film made, and would I be interested in doing the score, because he had been listening to my apparently my solo music was very very influential on the script to that film. So I read the script, loved it, and again, it was one of those things that I've never seen before. It's a really perfect script. It's very lean. It does everything that a script needs to do, and so I then said yes, and I think I was the first person to kind of sign on to that film with Ari. And then a couple of years later, he called and he said that he had acquired funding and they were starting to do everything. So all that to say, the runway for that film was very, very long. I got to sit with the script for a very long time. I got to then write music to the script alone, and looking at character photos and location photos, and then use that music to make the temp for the edit of the film, and also write music to give to the actors to play on set for them to get in the mood. It was kind of a perfect situation, and one that I would say almost never, but I think it really never happens quite so perfectly, that you have that much time, you have that much freedom artistically, you have somebody who's such a brilliant filmmaker that he you're not, your job is not going to be fixing other people's mistakes. So much of the time, film composition is, fixing something that's wrong with an edit, or fixing something that's wrong with performance, or fixing the fact that a script doesn't work. But with Ari, there's nothing like that. You're really just doing there's the freedom to just do what music does best, and enhance what's already what the effective and beautiful thing that's already there. So I can't say enough good things about that whole process.
Okay, what was it like recording with Ivo Perelman today?
I was quite flattered that Ivo reached out to me to record for this, and just really totally floored also because of the players that he's put together for all of the collaborations in this project. Just some of my favorite players, from all time, and certainly contemporarily, and so I've been looking forward to this for some time. Been very excited to get to know Ivo as a person and a player, and today we had some delays in finding the date, but I was very happy that we could finally make it work and get in the studio. And it was just there are sessions that feel like work, and there are sessions that just feel like conversation and play and exploration and curiosity, and this was the latter, and so I had a great time.
Beautiful, thank you. Okay, last question. Do you have anything else to say about Arcade Fire, Tom Waits, David Gilmour, TV on the Radio, David Byrne, Lou Reed, the Chemical Brothers? It's a very eclectic mix of musicians.
Oh, he specifically says it's a very eclectic.
He said that.
Oh, okay.
It's here.
Well,
maybe he wants to ask, how come you recorded such an eclectic mix of musicians? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think my playing it mirrors my listening, and I've never had. I grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and there still were record stores. You go to the Tower Records, and you'd go to the genre. You'd go to look at country, or free jazz, or goth, or whatever it may be, and I never understood being someone who walked over to one of the aisles and just picked from a category, a single genre of music, because I just always thought, well, no single shelf of music is going to all be good. It's only going to be a few of the top that are good, but all of them are going to, there's every different section that is in this store, there's going to be a few amazing records in each of those shelves. And so I've always listened to pretty much everything across the board. And so when I'm working with people, I do the same thing. There are people who I've worked with, like recently. I think within the last few years did a collaboration with Chemical Brothers, electronic musician producers, and it's and to me, I guess we talked about this a little bit earlier, but to me, there's no fundamental difference between something like that, or working with Laurie Anderson, or working with Arcade Fire, or working with Tom Waits or David Gilmour. It's just they're a songwriter who's imagined a piece of music, and they've come to you, tasked you with the puzzle of figuring out how it can be finished and enhanced with what it is that you can do, and I've always found that like a really thrilling endeavor. I love puzzles. I like I just love music of all sorts. So to me, there's not really, again, there's no fundamental difference between all these different genres. It's all music, and it all has to work, and so you find a way.
Beautiful. Last note, last thought. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ivo.
Beautiful.
Okay, cool. That works.
That works. Fine, yeah.
Great.